Hey everyone, welcome to Culture Binge. It's the show where we feast on the zeitgeist and lovingly regurgitate it for you. For everyone watching live, thank you so much. For everyone just listening, you're cool too. I'm here with some wonderful people. We've got Wisecrack researcher and Wisecrack's enunciator-in-chief, Serby.
Hi everyone, terrific to be here today.
I thought she needed a nickname. And he's been here enough. Wisecrack host, writer, Sir Wix-a-Lot. Michael Burns, PhD.
Wow, Wix-a-Lot. I like that because I buy anti-wicking exercise clothes. So
you mean wicking, not anti-wicking.
Oh, yeah, wicking.
Wick away
sorry.
the sweat.
Yes. I've learned this word only because I know I need to buy things that have that word in it so I don't look like a complete monster.
Well, I'm glad you're impressed. My name is Alec. I'm Wisecrack's managing editor. If you've been listening to us for a while now and haven't left us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, it'd be really awesome if you did. It helps other people find us, and then we can keep making the show, and I can keep coming up with dumb nicknames for Michael Burns' profuse sweating, and I'd really like to do that. So, I mean, also if you want to support all the other wonderful people on this podcast too. And one quick reminder before we get into the show, The Squanch, our Rick and Morty podcast, it's coming back November 11th. That's the day after the Rick and Morty premiere. Go check us out on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. We've got a link in the description if you want to go subscribe to that right now. But for our topics, I'm super excited. Serby is going to talk about the feasibility of sustainability. Michael's got weird tales of millennials saving money instead of buying avocado toast. Is that what's happening?
100%, yeah.
And I'm going to be talking about, I can't even say it, paternity. That's like paternal leave for pets. It's cool and weird and I like it. But anyway, it's that time of the show to figure out what's lifting our spirits, what's dragging them right back down. It's slaps and chaps. Michael, what's going on?
Oh, I'll tell you what's definitely going on. I completely forgot to think of these, so I'm going to come up with two things on the top of my head that are going to be perfect. Let's think. Ooh, what slaps? I really enjoyed, what was it called? The new Soderbergh movie on Netflix, The Laundromat, with Meryl Streep and stuff. I think it's a good watch. It's like mixing, it felt to me like taking the style of a Ocean's film and mixing it with The Big Short. And everything about the movie was good except the very last frame. So if anyone who's listening to this is watching, I'm curious about your thoughts on the very last frame. So that's what slaps for me right now.
What chaps your ass?
Oh.
This is the last frame.
Yes. Well, I thought, am I doing both or are we going to come back around?
No, it's always the same, man. It's
oh my gosh. I was wishing for something different. Okay. Ooh. Here's what chaps. People that drive cars in non-pedestrian cities. Here's what I mean by that. I feel like in Los Angeles, it's not a very pedestrian-friendly city. So if you walk here sometimes, cars will like graze you or run stop signs or go through little like walk zones. And you know where there's like the if I'm going to do this physically, but for anyone listening, where there's like white stripes on a pedestrian walkway that signifies the human with feet has the right of way over the car with wheels?
Yeah, I believe it's called a crosswalk.
Crosswalk. There we go. You learn something new every day, kids. I think this week I almost got hit 3 times, and I witnessed other people almost getting hit by people going through that. And I hate it. And every time it happens, I think to myself, I want to start carrying half of a brick in my backpack. So if anyone does that to me as they pull away, I can throw a brick through their back windshield. Not a violent man.
That. I mean, yeah. When like it's all cars and pedestrians aren't normal, people can be real dicks if you're walking around.
It's not good.
Like call the cop, not LA obviously, but sometimes you'll just be walking on the street somewhere else and people look at you like you're fucking insane.
Yeah, so I would say anyone listening, if you live in a smaller town or places that are car centric, like be kind to pedestrians. They're the ones getting exercise while slowly saving the planet by not emitting carbon.
Yeah.
Unless they're fart a lot.
Serby, what about you?
So what chaps for me is I'm growing tired of seeing headlines featuring Meghan Markle, the girl that married Prince Harry. And
is she a princess now, technically?
She's like a duchess now. And she did an interview recently, and she talked about how she's struggling with becoming a royal and how her first year has just been so challenging and she's having such a hard time. And I don't know why she's complaining. Like, I can understand if it was a like an anonymous person who suddenly became royal. I can understand that transition, because you're going from being anonymous to being one of the most famous people in the world. But she was already an actress before, so I don't understand that. And she has servants. She's super rich. She doesn't work. So I don't know why she's complaining. If I were royal, I'd just be busy living that royal life in my palace. So I don't like Meghan Markle.
Wow. The cool thing about... Sorry, go ahead.
And I just... And all these celebrities coming to her defense, saying like how she's an inspiration. Like, what is she an inspiration for? Like, what exactly did she do that's inspiring? Find a rich dude and marry him? Because if so, I would also like to be inspiring.
Harsh.
Very harsh. The cool thing about being rich, though, is that you could stop being rich at any point if you don't like it. So, yeah. I don't know. I haven't been following up on it, but I do find Americans following the royal family to be very weird.
Yeah, I don't like that. That was the whole point of this country, right? That we're like not into that. So then when we get obsessed with that, it's like, what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the point?
Benedict Arnold's revenge. This is his ghost haunting us.
And what slaps is KLM Airlines. They are just so fantastic. The flight attendants are friendly. They're very generous with food and snacks, and the planes are nice. And overall, KLM makes flying to and within Europe such a great experience. I'm not being sponsored by KLM, unfortunately. But if you are interested in flying to Europe, or if you're looking for flights within Europe, definitely check out KLM, because I've just had such a great time with them.
Should we go to klm.com/Serbi code to get 10% off on our next international flight?
Listen, that would be my dream if KLM was like, let's make her the face of our Dutch brand.
Cool. Well, as for me, I just finished a book called The Vaccine Race by Meredith Wadman. It's not a perfect book, but it's really interesting. It's all about the history of vaccine development in America, centered around this guy who developed these cells that they infect with viruses to grow the vaccines, to grow the viruses which become the vaccines. And it's really, really interesting. And a quick spoiler alert is that all the cool vaccines that we have, like polio and rubella and measles, were all pretty much tested on orphans and prisoners without them knowing that it could possibly hurt them.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Also, sometimes they would take really old people dying of cancer, and they wanted to see if the vaccine would cause cancer. So they'd inject it in a spot under their skin to see if they got an extra tumor. Because they're well, they're already dying from cancer. If I just give them a little bit more cancer? And as far as I know, it did not cause cancer, but it could have. So.
Thank you for your service, those people.
Yeah, we don't do that much stuff like that anymore, thank God. But
not
the
that we
book is
know
really
of.
good.
I always feel like these sorts of things come out in 15, 20 years.
Well, now, especially in the 60s and 70s, there was a series of legislation and sort of codes and all this stuff that really... there's review boards that review human experimentation. And if you're a researcher, you have to jump through all these hoops. They're good hoops. I know people who are in the research field, not even doing human experimentation, but they have to deal with all that stuff. But yeah, I'm sure there's still something we could be doing that's vaguely shitty. And as far as what chaps, subscription model video games, specifically, I just saw a tweet this morning. I don't even play this game. I don't even give a shit. But Fallout 76 is a game that everyone hates. Because it wasn't good, and it's online, and now you can pay $100 for a 12-month subscription to get extra features in it, which is more than Netflix and more than Xbox Live or any of the other gaming subscriptions, and everyone's mad at them. And I'm not that mad, but it chaps my ass a little bit. Just it's the injustice of it all.
Wow.
I don't really play video games, so I've missed the shift. I remember playing Nintendo 64, and then there was this big shift towards these subscription games and things like that. And I don't know, do people actually buy, they would rather do the subscription than buy the actual game?
Well, the thing is, it's not, you buy the game, but then you can buy with real money like upgrades for the game. So, like for instance, with this subscription to Fallout, you can like upgrade your storage so you can keep more shit, and you get to like play maps that you couldn't do before, and you get to wear cool clothes that like other people do, and like emotes are a big thing. Like your character can emote in certain ways that are exclusive if you have this subscription. A lot of games will do kind of pay for cosmetic things, like to make your character look cool, and I'm not that's fine. But some of them, they're called like pay to win, where you pay extra money and you can buy better, let's say, guns or weapons or anything like that faster.
I like that.
And
yeah, I think everyone hates it, and I just want to jump on that bandwagon.
This is so good from a business perspective. I love how they're getting people to pay more money. Like, it's just so genius.
Yeah.
Everything is drug dealer logic. You get them hooked, and then you offer them the next new thing. It's very classic.
Yeah. Anyway, Serby, you've got a great topic this week. There was an interview with the founder of Patagonia where he's very nihilistic and saying we're all fucked.
Love that guy.
Sustainability may or may not work, but we should do it anyway. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So this has been on my mind recently because I've been noticing a lot of family and friends not recycling, or they're wasting water or wasting food. And when I asked them why they leave the tap running for an hour while they clean the kitchen, even if they're not in the sink, or why they don't recycle and things like that, they said it's because there's no point, because they feel like they're just one person. Like, one person is not going to make much of a difference. And I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, how do small actions add up? And I came across this interview with Yvon Chouinard, who's the founder of Patagonia. And for those of you who don't know, Patagonia is an American clothing company that sells outdoor clothing designed for activities like camping or hiking or climbing. And
they sold those vests, right?
The puffer jacket vests. And it's very trendy to have like a Patagonia down jacket. And so in addition to having high quality clothing, the company is famous for spending millions of dollars fighting for environmental causes around the world and investing money in sustainable business practices. So one of the things they say is, at Patagonia, the protection and preservation of the environment isn't what we do after hours, it's part of our everyday work. So in this interview, Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, discusses how small actions can add up and make a difference. And even though he's quite pessimistic about our chances, he still says that it's important to act and to do something. So he gives examples of a restaurant chain not selling salmon in order to restore the population, of a large Japanese company switching from coal power plants to clean energy, and from Patagonia investing in growing organic cotton so that it causes a little less harm to the environment. And so even though he thinks that like our chances are like we're facing an uphill battle, he's still committed to doing something, and he sees these small acts as an effort to slow or to maybe reverse some of the damage that we're causing. So my question to you is, given the news about polar ice caps melting, global warming increasing, and the Amazon fires still raging, do you think that small actions are worth the effort? Or do you think that we should align ourselves with Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who have given up on Earth and are now turning their attention across the galaxy?
I mean, I think this makes me think of a similar interview that Naomi Klein did, I want to say last week or the week before, with The Guardian. Naomi Klein, who wrote This Changes Everything and No Logo and a bunch of other good books. But she made the point that like we kind of don't have a choice to not do anything right now because it's such a desperate situation. But I think like with the Patagonia guy, Yvon Chouinard, I kind of agree that like we're probably screwed, but we should also probably still do stuff. just because if things get really bad, eventually a future generation is going to look around and be like, which one of the olds at least tried and what of the olds didn't try at all? And there might be political or, I don't know, like mortal ramifications. And I would just want to be on the right side of things. And I say that half in jest, but half just to say, like, might as well give it a fighter's chance than just completely tap out.
You don't want future generations to think of us what we think of boomers, in other words.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like, worst case scenario, our kids will give us decent retirement pods if they know we tried our best and didn't just take all we could in the time we had with no regard for future generations.
Cool. I think it's really interesting and complicated in like cool and interesting ways, because I think there's like one debate about the personal responsibility rhetoric versus like systems changing, and I don't necessarily. I can often be, I think, skeptical of the individual responsibility angle and more lean towards the like, oh, we need to fix the whole system and enact legislation and all these other things. And, often when things require mass action, it's because of a large scale, sort of like top down thing. And I know I talk about vaccines all the time, but that's what I'm reading about, where it's like everyone needs to get vaccinated and it's like on everyone. So like we, the government, are going to like knock on doors and get it done. And I think to an extent that has happened with recycling, right? Like most people recycle now, or at least, I don't know, maybe they do. And certain cities have laws that will fine you for not recycling. And so that like probably has created a net good, except for the fact that China's not taking our plastic anymore. That's maybe another part of this discussion. But so there's that angle where I think focusing on the individual can absolve us from thinking about like the larger structures that are murdering the environment and us all. The other thing is that I think there's this thing called the Jevons paradox or Jevons paradox. There was an economist in Britain around the time that the what was it, the Watson steam engine or the Watt steam engine was invented. It was a steam engine which was much more coal efficient than predecessors, right? So you have oil, you have England that is running on all of its coal, chopping down all their forest. It's like a huge environmental catastrophe at that time. People are talking about this. And then this engine comes along, which is more sustainable. So people are like, great, crisis over. And what Jevons noticed was that after this more efficient engine was invented, coal consumption increased because now it's cheaper, more people can do it. And I think you can sort of apply that generally to, I think, a lot of sort of green industries. Like if we're, there's still an environmental impact, for instance, to certain green energies, right? And if the energies are cheaper and more sustainable, in theory, we could just consume a lot more of it. Or a great example is even the way computers, we're using a lot of paper, cutting down a lot of trees, right? But computers come along and make that obsolete. And so we have, all it needs is electricity, right? But now we create hundreds, if not thousands, or hundreds of thousands times more information on a daily basis, that now we have server farms, running on all these fossil fuels that are, fucking over the environment. So I guess getting back to the original thing you're saying, for me, it's kind of like a Pascal's wager where it's like, I think it might be hopeless, but like, I think maybe we should try anyway, which is kind of what the founder of Patagonia says. Because if it's not hopeless and we didn't try, it's going to be real shitty. But if it is hopeless and we tried, I just wasted some time sorting out plastics versus metals, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Well, and something you just said, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I agree with this last point that you made, that what's the worst that could happen? Like you wasted some time recycling, or you wasted, some time turning off and on the water a bit more. And I think it's one of those things where if you think about it, if we continue to make progress in this way, Patagonia, for example, is investing in creating synthetic fibers, and if we do things like innovate and try to come up with new sustainable practices, then perhaps it may not make that much of an effort right now, but maybe future generations will be able to discover new methods that build upon what we've already done. Or if nothing else, it would help them realize, well, that didn't work, let's try something else. So there's nothing to lose, I think, from trying and from acting.
Yeah, the weird thing with like innovation though, and what you just said and what Alec was saying makes me think of the dichotomy between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter in the late 70s and early 80s. And one of the things you had there was when Carter was president, he famously told Americans that to conserve energy with a coming climate crisis, we had to lower our expectations, turn our thermostats down. And his whole point was to achieve a sustainable future that involves a collective lowering of expectations and kind of killing that desire for limitless innovation and growth. And then Reagan, of course, framed things in terms of, we talked about limitless economic growth and then, of course, beat Carter and Carter's reelection campaign. And that sort of spirit seems like it's been around for a while now, this idea of limitless growth, and any innovation we do have will just enable us to consume things in a different way. So I think that like no matter what we do, until there's a general cultural shift in expectations, we're still kind of screwed. But I do think, to be a little bit Aristotelian, that like if virtue and our morals are developed through our habits, and our habits are doing things to conserve, we become people who value those things, and maybe that has an effect that trickles into the social and political sphere, where our values are more shaped by those sorts of things. Because as Alec brought up, I mean, I think it's something like, 76% of carbon emissions are produced by 7 companies or something like that. So it's hard sometimes to be, a single individual up against all of that. So it seems like we do need a larger just cultural, or I guess philosophical shift in how we approach what we're all doing here.
And I don't think that that's unheard of either. The Netherlands, for example, has said, I forgot the year, but it's something like 2024, they will no longer allow gas-powered vehicles. Everything needs to be electric.
Wow.
So the issue, though, is that how many electric cars are there? And so they're basically forcing car companies to innovate and to make this shift, because otherwise they can't sell cars in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it comes down to like, I guess I don't have the faith, and if I'm like, innovation will inevitably come, right? But I don't think it will save us. Like the Patagonia guys essentially being like, just existing on this earth, you're sort of like fucking it up a little bit, even if you're like the best person in the world. But I mean, we live in an economic system that is predicated on unlimited growth. Like the GDP needs to grow certain percentage points every year, and if it doesn't, then it's a recession, it's bad, people lose their jobs, unemployment, and that can spiral downwards or improve, right? And so like economic development implies more business happening, and that business in a physical sense is often more materials, whether they're fuels or trees or plastics, whatever. But even in like the sort of digital service sense, it's more information and more power. And so I just think we're going to keep making things more efficient, but it's in this sort of Jevons paradox way, it's going to keep like, as long as we live in an economic system, and there's not a solution to this, which also freaks me out, where there needs to be unlimited growth for an unlimited amount of time, or everything goes to shit. That's where I get super hopeless, except to say, like, can we think of something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the disease is built into the system, and there's not really a way to subvert that internally to that structure. Yeah. So wear your Patagonia and climb your mountain while you still have it.
Yeah. Patagonia, great brand though. Love their stuff.
It is. That guy's so cool. There's a documentary that someone made recently. It's about that dude and his life story, and it's wild. And he made me feel like such a coward. Because him and his friends were like, with gear they made themselves, climbing El Capitan way before a lot of other people. Google image search El Capitan if you've never seen it. It's like a sheer rock face in Northern California that's horrifying to even look at. But a really like cool, kind of gnarly guy who's done some good things in his life.
And I think he got rich making these tools for rock climbers that fuck up the rock. Like they're bad for, they destroy the rock you're trying to climb, the mountain you're trying to climb.
They invented.
And so he just stopped
the
selling
clip.
them. And yeah.
But like, I think it's cool. Like, he initially invented this thing so him and his friends wouldn't die falling off a mountain, and then was like, oh no, but it's hurting the mountain, so sorry, friends.
And you spend most of your time worrying about, oh, my light just turned off. Sorry, everyone. You spend most of your time just stressing out about where you should get a taco. So
really, what I'm saying is we're the same guy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we could move on to your topic, which is millennial milestones. Some millennials may or may not be saving a lot of money. I'm not sure I believe it, but
I don't believe it at all.
Fine.
So anyone who exists on the internet, and especially who exists on the nonstop hellhole that is Twitter, probably saw this week that an article is making the rounds. And it's not a new article, but in the weird life cycle of Twitter, things will be resurrected and reflogged just because the collective outrage needs a target. But it was an article from CNBC, the title of which is 1 in 6 Millennials have $100,000 saved. Here's how much you should have at every age. And the data is according to a Bank of America survey, which says that 16% of millennials, which are defined as people between 23 and 37, have $100,000 or more in savings. And this is against the backdrop of their logic being that by age 30, you should have the equivalent of your annual salary saved. So like they think when you're 30, if you make $50,000, you should have at least $50,000 at a minimum in your bank account. The reason, of course, people freaked out when this made the rounds on Twitter is because the collective discourse is often talking about things like student loan debt and how everyone works freelance jobs and how everyone's going into debt and no one has money anymore. And the money we do have, we spend on fancy brunches in Alex's native Brooklyn. And that's the reason why, as a generation, millennials are screwed. So it seems paradoxical to imagine that 1 in 6 people have 100,000 savings. And of course, I was running through my head. I have just enough friends to be able to think about 1 in 6.
Do you know who the 1 in 6 are?
Well, I will say this. Anyone I know, I won't name names, anyone I know who's in their late 20s and early 30s that I think has that much money in savings has inherited wealth. I can't think of too many people that on their job alone, and I say this as someone, of course, who is a middle-class white dude that's well-educated and had good opportunities, who still finds that unfathomable. So I think the two things that this makes me think of, one, of course, is, does it just sound like total bullshit? Do we actually believe that in America, 1 in 6 people between 24 and 37 has $100K in savings? On the flip side, that article at least goes on to say that for example, when you're 30, you should have a full year salary saved. By 35, you should have double that. By 40, you should have quadruple that. So it sort of has a ladder for savings. And to me, at least, I don't know how realistic that is and how healthy it is in the current economic landscape to set this standard that tells people they should have these absurd amounts of money saved at certain points in life, and how that could make one feel. If they're out there trying their best to do something and aren't getting to that point. And last thing I'll say, early in that article, it says, when you're in your 20s, you should save at least 25% of your discretionary income, which to me just sounds insane. When I was in my 20s, I basically had to spend every dollar I made, sometimes going into debt, to pay rent and do basic stuff. So what world is this coming from? And is this healthy for us to think about?
I want to know, I agree with you that this is not healthy. I also think it's unhelpful. It sets up another unattainable standard that it sort of instills fear. And I want to know more about this survey. Who did they talk to? Who did they survey? Because I would say every single one of my friends is one of the 6 people who has that much money saved. But that's
every single one of your friends?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But that's
Only
because
hangs out with classy people.
No. It's because they're all friends from business school or from things like that, where they have high paying jobs. They're able to afford those sorts of things and save a lot of money. So I can imagine other people though, and there's just no way that a person with a regular job, with a regular degree, can save that much money. So I wonder if that survey is skewed. Like, were they just looking at people who have high degrees or are in specific professions?
Yeah. Well, also, Bank of America did it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was people with Bank of America accounts, which already skews it because, like, so many Americans don't have bank accounts because they don't have the minimum balances and they're, like, living paycheck to paycheck and using, what are those called? The shady check cashing companies, payday loans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that probably skews it. But
And it was a small sample size. So the survey was with 1,500 respondents aged 18 to 71. And it was done through an external company, GFK Public Communications and Social Science, using their knowledge panel, a statistically representative sample source.
But I mean, they clearly exist because I feel, and I think someone just said this in the comments more or less, but millennials are at an age, they're like 30, and either they have like a sweet job with a good salary or they're still like making minimum wage and paying off their student debts. I mean, the people with the sweet jobs could also be paying off their student debts, but I want to take a not entirely contrarian approach, which is that your point is that people like it you know, these expectations are kind of bad because it really shows like the discrepancy in how people live, and you know, lots of people can't afford that. And I want to say that's maybe kind of good because people realize how screwed things are. They're like, oh, I'm supposed to save this much, and like I have $5 in my bank account, and then I don't want them to feel like it's their fault, but like to be like, something's wrong here.
No, for sure. And it really shows the discrepancy between, you know, even the three of us talking right now, like the things we're educated in and the careers we've pursued. Like, I don't know, as someone that's floated in the worlds of like academia and creative writing type stuff, I know very few people that make a lot of money or have anything near that. And of course, there's people in other fields who that's not a big deal at all if one's in like law or medicine or business. So it kind of highlights that increased gap between different careers, different types of people. And I think you're right that maybe it's good to know that. And so we can be really mad at all Serby's friends for all their wealth.
Well, it's interesting because even though I run in that circle, I'm still the poorest person. There's no way, because I didn't pursue a traditional business career.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my best friend from high school is a physician. My other best friend is, you know, running his own company. So it's something where, you know, they talk about how much money they have in savings, and I'll look over and I'll think, God, we're the same age. Like, I don't have anywhere near that amount of money. And reading this article, I had to stop reading it because it was stressing me out so much. There's no way. I have a ton of student debt. Business school was $100,000 waste of money. And so I feel like reading this and seeing 1 out of 6 people has this much in savings makes me feel like I'm behind or I'm failing, or like, did I make a mistake with my career? Should I have gone into finance? Should I have gone into something that was more lucrative rather than something that's more creative?
Yeah. And of course, we know that like most people have an amount of student loan debt that correlates to what they are supposed to have saved. I know of significantly more people that have $50,000 in debt by age 30 than that have $50,000 saved. So that's another thing. When looking at that data alongside what we know about the student debt crisis, they seem to be two very opposite stories.
I'm also curious about the relationship dynamics of these people that have this much money saved. For example, some of my friends may not have the most high-paying jobs, but they are in relationships where the boyfriend, the spouse, the girlfriend, whoever will cover all expenses so that their salary can go towards paying off student debt or towards savings. So I wonder how much financial support these people receive. That makes a difference too. If you're just a single person without a lot of financial backing, it's unlikely that you will have this much money saved because you have to pay for things like groceries without somebody supporting your Trader Joe's bill.
Have you guys heard about Refinery 29's money diaries?
No.
Okay, so my encounter with these is that my partner reads them and will sometimes share with them. The whole premise is usually people in New York will just write about how they spent money for 6 days. So it will say 7:30 a.m. didn't have time to make coffee, bought a $3 drink at Starbucks. And like it's all over the place. Some people make a ton of money, and they'll have headlines like living on 40 grand a year in New York City. And so many of these people are like, oh, I get a modest like $600 a month from my parents, or like, oh, like my boyfriend pays all my bills, and I'm like, oh, what the? Oh God, it's so good for them. It's infuriating, but
Yeah. But that's also one of the dirty little secrets of like millennial money stuff, because people, and it's like is what it is. I'm not judging at all, but a lot of people that have family money or get top ups like that don't say it because maybe it's considered like weird to talk about or shameful or whatever it is. But all it does is F up expectations when we don't know that people who like have our jobs and we're like, shit, they make as much as me. How are they living like this? We don't know that like mama and papa are getting that direct deposit in your account every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I will say though on the other end, so in my circle of friends, like I have some friends that are, or friends of friends that are doing very well. They either like a few of them might make 6 figures or close to 6 figures, and they don't save money. And usually it's just a lot of like me trying to shame them for making bad financial decisions. So one person got a job, they like made a huge leap to 6 figures, and they give a ton of money to their church, which is cool. I'm not going to judge it. But then they spend $100 a week on facials, and they don't have a retirement account. Another friend doesn't make as much money, but makes like a good salary. And I was like, I don't know, like I might contribute like 1 or 2% to my 401k that I have. And so I don't know what the point of that was, just to say that some people are just so overwhelmingly dumb with their money who have money.
But I think in a weird way that connects with the first topic a little bit, because sometimes I think this way, which is like fiscal nihilism, which is like, screw it. Who knows like what's going to be up with the planet, the economy, everything in 15 to 20 years. So am I going to save money that by the time I'm able to spend it will be useless anyways because there'll be a Mad Max scenario? Shouldn't I just enjoy it now and like have a nice time? Or even to be a little slightly more serious, sometimes I do think like we don't know how long our life is going to be or like what's going to happen. So why like sometimes you read those money journals where people are like, I paid off my student loan debts in my 30s by only eating peanut butter sandwiches for 10 years and I've never gone out to dinner. And I'm just like, you get hit by a goddamn bus and then you've never tasted sushi or some nice tacos because you're eating sandwiches and saving money. Like, was that worth it? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I don't really spend a lot of money, but when I do spend money, it's on delicious food.
Yeah.
I recently tortured myself over spending $30 to replace a 10-year-old pair of sweatpants. So that's where I'm
very
at.
Reasonable. You should be allowed to do that, and I can't even imagine how those 10-year-old pants smelled.
Anyway, anything to add, Serby?
No, I just to follow up on what Michael said, that like you can't stop living. I think if you are tight on money, like you shouldn't not eat things. You shouldn't like not buy your sweatpants. Like you should still live within your means if you can, because I think for a long time I sort of felt that way, like very guilty buying certain things or traveling certain places, because I felt like if I have this much money, that should probably go towards student loans. Like it shouldn't be buying a ticket to Europe. But then I thought, well, 20 years can pass and I may not travel if I keep having that mentality. So you have to keep living your life and in finding ways to enjoy yourself, even if you have a very fixed small income.
And if you go to klm.com right now, there's plenty of opportunities for you to use that money to explore the world. Use code
Don't forget to use my code.
SerbyShill22. Cool. Well, before we move on to my topic, I just want to give a shout out to everyone who donated. Dude abides as always. With Halloween around the corner, any childhood Halloween slaps or chaps? Oh, one time, oh God, I lit a person's yard on fire.
Jesus.
What the
No, so they had
you just admitted to a crime, my guy.
They had paper like jack-o'-lanterns, like a candle in a paper. Bad idea to begin with.
That's dumb.
And then they gave us an apple or something. I kicked them over, and it was like a very small fire.
Oh, that's
so
reasonable.
I'm sorry to that person if you're still alive. But also, what are you doing handing out apples? What about you guys?
I just think Halloween, it kind of chaps for me. I don't like candy, so I've never really seen the point. I wish there was better things giving out. And as a kid, I didn't like it very much. And once a neighbor did a thing where, you know, sometimes people do the thing where they'll like leave a bowl out and say like, take one. So this neighbor put a bowl out and it said, take one. And then they had what looked like a sort of like skeleton sitting on this bench outside their house as a prop. But it was a dude and you're a kid and you thought it was a prop and you took candy and it would like leap at you. And it was horrifying. And I legit think I cried once when I was a kid because of that. But it's kind of funny looking
That's
back.
definitely a slap for me. My slap is that I bought this really nice Harry Potter costume. So I was Hermione and I did my hair like very bushy like, and it was really nice. And what chaps is when you open the door, all these kids would come in to like the house a little bit. And I'd be like, oh no, like, don't do that. Like, this is my home and you were supposed to stay outside. So that's very annoying, I think, is dealing with kids that just want to like keep grabbing all the candy and things like that and are quite impolite. And Michael, I think you would really like trick-or-treating in the neighborhood I grew up because they didn't give out candy a lot of times. They gave out things like popcorn or glow sticks or toys like pencils and erasers, like really cool kind of erasers.
I loved erasers.
It was a neat place.
Sounds awesome.
Well, it's all right. Hate mail to Michael because he doesn't like candy like a monster. Not even as a kid?
No, I've always liked savory, salty treats.
I mean, that's my preference, but like, I'm not going to not eat candy that's put in front of me.
Even desserts I like are like, I don't know, like pies that are basically like vegetables, like sweet potato pie and stuff like that. Give me that over chocolate any day of the week.
Freak. All right. Cool. Well, thanks for that. And also shout out to Ruhan and Nathan for donating. Ruhan says, love your guys' work. Always look forward to this. Thank you, Ruhan. There's some weird shadows for everyone watching live because my light broke. It's fine. My topic, I think it's kind of a brief topic. It's just a weird thing in American society that I'm partially in support of, or all the way in support of. Paternity leave, pet parental leave. This is, people have written about this before, but Business Insider just did like a listicle of 7 companies that offer pet parental leave. And the idea is when you adopt an animal, or I guess buy one, you need time to settle in with your animal. And so they give you sometimes up to a week off to have that adjustment. Some companies say it's just to retain their employees, to make them happy, which I guess, you know, us millennials, we need our unlimited snacks and cold brew coffee and paternity leave. And one company even said it was like a pet-centric company. It's better for the pets, which is cool. This is from the article, research from Pet Plan, have no idea who they are, found that 5% of owners have been offered paid leave from the job to adjust to their pet owning duties. Also, on the flip side of this, there is also pet bereavement leave, which I'm all about. My cat dies. She's sitting right next to me. I need at least a day off, maybe 2. I think Jared would offer it. When Jared's dog dies, fingers crossed that will never happen.
Don't even say it.
Oh my God, why did you say that?
Sorry.
Jesus.
That's so
Christ.
shocking. The idea of Woody and then how
Don't say
devastated
that.
Jared will be.
Oh my God.
He's going to live forever, and when he doesn't, Jared's going to need a year off.
Well,
but anyway.
when Alec dies, we'll do a podcast the next day.
Hell yeah. No break. We don't have time for a funeral. or
No
anything.
days off.
I'm a horrible
Sorry.
person. But
You're
anyway,
gonna live forever.
what do you guys think?
I mean, it's like fun, but it's like another example of companies that probably have too much money, that have these millennial employees they're trying to steal from other hip startups. They just give you stupid shit to keep you working there while someone with like a normal job is like trying their best to get an extra Friday off to go to their grandma's funeral. But it's fine, I guess.
I think it's part of a larger trend of also a trend I'm not opposed to, treating pets essentially like humans. We've got, you know, organic food for pets, which is cool. Feed your pet healthy stuff that you can afford to. But like luxury pet brands with luxury collars. You know, getting your dog into doggy daycare is like now this competitive thing, like getting your kid into daycare. Also, anti-vaxxers are now, as I've mentioned before, not getting their pets vaccinated along with their kids.
Damn.
do think it's interesting, and I have an argument with a family member in that anything I buy for my cat does not care about, including a bed. And this person, it's my mother, it's fine. She's like, you have to get her a bed. Like, you know, it's not right for her to just have to like sleep on the floor. But that's literally where she wants to sleep.
So any benefit or perk that makes employees happy or offers flexibility, I am in strong support of, because I think that organizations take so much advantage of people. So if there's anything that makes them happy, do it. And I think for many people, it's like you said, Alec, like for some people, pets are humans to them. They're like real family members, and maybe people will never take advantage of the parental leave policy because they don't want children or they can't have children. So for them, having an animal is the equivalent of that. So why shouldn't we support their decisions? And it's a small thing to offer, and it doesn't, I mean, I don't have pets, so I don't really see like the impact of it too much, like personally, but I have empathy and can understand that for some people this is a big thing. The other thing is that I think organizations need to have a more person-centric focus when it comes to how to integrate their employees' personal lives into work. And I didn't word that properly, but the idea is that we shouldn't be so rigid and so structured with things. Like, we should try to offer policies that offer flexibility and that let people take an extra Friday off for their grandmother's funeral, or that let people take some time off if they have lost a pet. And people shouldn't feel ashamed about that, or they shouldn't feel like, oh, this is bad, or this will reflect poorly on my performance.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, I like the flexibility. I think this is going to sound like I'm complaining about like how dare they. People with kids often get to like take a ton of time off and flexibility. I got to go pick my kid up from daycare. I've got a PTA meeting. I have to leave early. I have to take them to the doctor. They're always getting sick. And I think that should be there. But as someone who may or may not want children, I'm like, where's mine? And I feel similarly, like, at least with the pet thing, I could be like, I have to pick up my cat from cat daycare. No, but I think it's like when I was a teenager working in restaurants, people who smoked got to take smoke breaks, and I didn't smoke, so I didn't get to take breaks, and it was bullshit. But I think the solution is not to sort of cancel the smoke break. The solution is to give everyone flexibility for different reasons.
100%. There's this woman in my office building who goes outside at the same time every day and takes her shoes off and puts her feet on the ground and meditates for a bit. And it's like it's a vibe. She really goes for it. But I think that's cool. Like, for years we thought it's okay to go outside and work on your cancer. And now it's cool if she wants to go outside and meditate and get centered for the rest of her day. And whether that's like, at work sometimes I like to go read for 15 minutes. And I feel guilty about that sometimes, like reading a novel outside. But it's like, if someone else can smoke or do whatever, why can't I read a novel? We should be able to do this stuff.
I'm quite fortunate in that the company I work for has a lot of flexibility within our schedules. And so there are days where I just don't feel like working in the afternoon. So I will take a few hours off and go to the beach. And then I'll come back and I'll work until late in the evening or on like a Saturday or something. And I find myself more productive because of that. And if someone feels more productive and happier at work because they had quality time with their dog or their cat or their iguana, then let them do it.
Except for iguanas, yes. You can't spend quality time with an iguana.
Are you ever annoyed about people going too far and kind of treating their pets like, not like a member of family, but like a human?
My best friend just got a dog, and she treats it like a human. Like, her dog has, she has a little, like a pram, a little stroller that the dog sits in, and she pushes.
Does the dog not have
around.
legs?
She has 4 working legs, but she's just like, oh, well, she'll get tired, so she just needs to sit in her
She'll
pram.
get tired because she's out of shape because she doesn't get to walk. Sorry.
Yeah, and the other thing that's really interesting to me is this whole like dog culture where so my friend lives in LA, and she drops this dog off at this very fancy doggy daycare center, and the dogs all have these really fancy birthday parties, and apparently there are famous dog Instagrammers. So some of these Instagram dogs go to this doggy daycare and they'll invite my friend's dog to their potty, and they like all get together with their little paw friends. And so my friend was telling me how excited she was that her dog got invited to this famous dog Instagram's birthday party. And I don't like, for me, it was sort of like, what the fuck? Like, you're acting as if this is like your child, like your daughter got invited to like the fanciest party around. But to her, it is. I mean, she may not have kids, so
Can I just say I find this appalling. Oh, I'm leaving. I'm never coming back, and I might die today.
All right. With that, I think we can wrap it up and move on to voicemails. We got voicemails. We got some emails. For anyone who wants to leave a voicemail, please keep them short. 1-213-534-8807. If you want to leave us an email, it's culturebinge@wisecrack.co. Culturebinge@wisecrack.co. There's no M. I've told you that many times, but whatever. I'll do it again. And before Michael gets into it, we did receive one email. I'm not going to say their name for obvious reasons. Or sorry, it was a voicemail from a person who works in vaccine manufacturing. That was really cool, but we don't have time to play it. But please email me because I'd like to talk to you about your job because I'm doing lots of research on vaccines, as people know. Anyway, why don't we start with the voicemails? I believe one is about not having kids and the other is about something else.
Mm-hmm. Let's start with the one that's about something else.
Hey, it's Darrell from Virginia. I was just commenting on an episode about the Sesame Street and the opiates. My take on that is when I first heard it, I thought it was kind of weird for them to be discussing that on Sesame Street. But when I heard Serby kind of explain it, I had a different take on it. I feel that you can educate children on things without exposing them to it, just like with drugs. You can kind of explain if you see someone smoking or if someone offers you something. You could tell them, these are the things you don't do. You can, about stranger danger. You tell them, stay away from strangers, but you don't expose them to all the things that can happen if they run into a stranger. So I feel with the opioid issue on Sesame Street, you can let someone know about something, about a danger, and kind of educate them on the situation.
There you go.
That's a really good point. And I think it like makes me think that children have no there's like no preconceived ideas, like they're a complete blank slate. So if we can educate them in like a safe environment, then we help shape their knowledge base. My fear was just that maybe it would make them really afraid, but we got an email that was interesting that countered that point. And she said something like children wouldn't be afraid because they don't know any different. So it's up to us of how we shape that conversation. And this is really, this caller made a good point too, that if we educate them in a safe way, they'll be more prepared if they encounter these things.
Yeah, I think that was all just my takeaway from all this is I just think early childhood educators are so important and undervalued because to navigate the subtleties of like teaching young minds about things like opiates in a way that's informative but not overwhelming or traumatizing is like it's a razor's edge. So shouts to those people who are capable of doing that.
Yeah, that was an awesome voicemail. And then the next one is on anti-natalism.
This is true.
Babies.
Here we go.
Hey, Culture Binge crew. This is Noah from Texas. It's a short piece on the anti-natalism discussion. Serby mentioned she felt it might be a selfish choice to have children, given the lack of certainty of their quality of life and how she'd feel if they told her they wished they'd never been born, but that she'd still do it, just feel bad. Michael Burns put in that we still eat fries and chicken, even though we know they're bad for us, so sometimes we don't always make the right choice necessarily. The distinction I draw is that the choice to have a child is not just about you. It's not just a personal choice. It has to do with the child's life as well. And we would condemn a parent who chose to not vaccinate their child, or a pregnant woman who's smoking or drinking, because they're obviously putting their desires over the quality of life of the child. If I want children, which I do, I will adopt. And I don't think that it's necessary to have your own child to be a good parent or to feel fulfilled as a parent. Anyway, keep up the good work, guys.
I also want to adopt.
Yeah, intellectually, I think if I do want to have kids, probably adopt. But there's this dumb part of me that's like, you need to spread your genetic material. But my genetic material is awful, so I shouldn't think that. It's really bad, everyone.
Yeah, and I say this without at all judging anyone that has biological children or my future self if me and another person do that. But yeah, I think morally adopting kids is the best thing you can do. There's tons of children out there who, because of sad circumstances, would love to be a part of your family. So I agree with Noah on that one.
Cool. Let's get in the emails. I think the first one is from Dottie, also about Sesame Street.
Yeah, speaking of kids, if I had a kid, I'd want to name it Dottie. That's such a cool name. Okay, so email from Dottie. Hi, guys, longtime fan. Second time writing in. Wow. I wanted to comment on your guys' Sesame Street discussion from an earlier episode. I agree that not everyone may want their kids exposed to some of the harsher topics on the show, but I do think there is value in having them on TV for the general public. Obviously, kids who deal with the issues discussed benefit greatly from seeing it talked about on the show, but I also think that teaching children who don't deal with these issues about them is a way to teach empathy and compassion. I've heard they also cover topics like having a parent in prison and introducing a character with autism. It's no secret that kids with all of these issues tend to get bullied, so even if they understand it, other kids might not be as sensitive. Maybe a parent advisory could be added so parents can make that decision for themselves, but that's just my 2 cents. Thanks for reading. Keep killing it.
Yeah. That's a great email.
Yeah. No disagreements.
I did have the thought of like, will teaching kids that these problems exist discourage the bullying or encourage, like, if the kids were completely ignorant, then they wouldn't even know what to make fun of.
Yeah. And honestly, whenever I think about having kids, all I think about is what would I do if they got bullied? And it really bothers me. It's so horrifying.
Kill the bully.
Stop it. You slowly poison the bully. Yeah, that's good.
I was a huge nerd, but I was fine because I was like a foot taller than everyone. So I didn't like physically threaten anyone, but I think they just implicitly realized that they shouldn't do that.
No, same. I was a dweeb, but I was taller than everyone in my grade, so I think I got off the hook a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry for everyone who's short and nerd. It must really suck.
Yeah.
I really like this email because I think it's makes a good point that it's important to teach children empathy and compassion. And I think Sesame Street is one way to do it. And as a future parent, I like to think about how could I teach these things to children? And Sesame Street is one way to do it. And Alec, I think you said this just now. I just can't remember. But you said, I'm so jet lagged. I'm having a hard time forming sentences. That you said that if children didn't know, then they wouldn't know what to make fun of. But I don't know that that's true.
Totally
like,
could be wrong. Yeah.
I think that children will make fun of anything that they don't deal with or anything that is abnormal to them. So, because if you're not like them, then you have to be weird.
Yeah.
So I think that if we do teach them with Sesame Street or other media, I think that's a way to expose it to children so they understand, but then also maybe explain things in a loving, kind way. So this way children don't think that it is abnormal or strange or something that should be made fun of.
Yeah.
And if anyone has kids that aren't dicks and are very empathetic and compassionate, let us know what you did to teach them that, because it's such a special skill. Right. Should we hit this next email?
Yeah.
It's from Jacob, also a good name, a revered name in the Wisecrack offices. So email from Jacob. I found your thoughts on the Sesame Street story not problematic per se, but perhaps a bit disconcerting. I should say first off, as someone on the autism spectrum, I greatly appreciated Sesame Street creating a spectrum character through the same program you talked about. Where I grew a bit worried in your discussion is you seem to jump straight to the worst case scenario of only negative concepts being put on children back to back with nothing positive in between. From what I know, that is not the case, and implying that it is or could be feels a bit off. Maybe more discussion of how it could help to have the slightly more adult topics interspersed between more general child-oriented education would help alleviate my concerns. That's the email from Jacob.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think I did mention something that I'd hope that these stories, that these digital stories weren't just focused on that one character. My hope was that it was also mixed with other, like, A is for Apple kind of content. My issue that I just didn't want it to be just about opioid addiction or just about homelessness, because I think that is very difficult for children to process in such a concentrated format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Jacob, for going so negative on that. My therapist recently taught me I practice something called catastrophic thinking, which means I go to the worst case scenario in various things. And I'm pretty sure that's probably what I did in that discussion. But I think he's absolutely right that there's 100% room to intersperse narrative stories and things like that within the Sesame Street extended universe that could teach kids those things. So, and I think that works well with the previous email about using stuff like that to help foster empathy and compassion with kids. So, good email.
Cool. Well, first of all, sorry for laughing about your catastrophic thinking. This whole thing. We
I think it's funny too. Yeah.
You didn't watch enough Sesame Street. You're not compassionate enough.
That's totally. I don't think I did. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining in. To all of our live viewers, to everyone who donated, to all of our patrons. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for listening. And you can find all of us on Twitter. Surby, I think I remember at this point. It's at Surrey Patel 22.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot yours already. Michael O. Burns.
Yeah, just Michael O. Burns.
And
so simple.
I'm at Wisecrack Alec. Say hi. Tell us cool topics. Yeah. We'll see you all next week. So what we're going to be doing is we've got a few more episodes, and then we're kind of like finishing, we'll call it our first season. We're going to finish out October. We got one episode in November and one episode in December. And then we will be officially back come probably beginning or middle of January for what we'll call season 2. I know it's weird to have seasons on a show like this, but that's what we're doing. So thank you all so much. Bye.